Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The New Orleans Saints beat the New York Giants by a score of 14-11. And that score alone kind of gives you an indication. This was a very ugly game, and one in which the Giants had a potential game-tying field goal blocked that would have brought the game to overtime. It was Bryan Bresee, the defensive lineman of the New Orleans Saints, that gets in there and blocks the Graham Gano kick, which was not a long one. It was maybe a 35-yard field goal attempt. Let me just get the right number on that. 35-yard field goal blocked. So the Giants were down 14-3. They almost make a comeback. I mean, this was, again, it was mistakes on both sides. The Saints were the better team, but really the Giants, there was a punt return touchdown by Amir Smith-Marset that was called back due to a holding penalty, I believe, on Greg Stroman, the cornerback. There was a penalty on Jake Kubis that prevented 3 points on the board. The Giants, it was a 15-yard penalty, personal foul penalty, which is kind of ironic with what ends up happening with Bresee. I believe Bresee was the one that Kubis took down on the previous field goal attempt. So definitely Giants mistakes, as you'd expect. A valiant effort. I mean, I'll definitely give them that, and the fact that they really could have just closed up shop. And they did find. I had flashbacks to last season because, I really wanted the Giants to lose this game. It was a big sigh of relief once that field goal was blocked and it wasn't going to overtime. But here's the thing. Derek Carr gets hurt on the last Saint possession. What appeared to be a left hand or a left arm injury, and maybe even a concussion as well. So hoping Derek Carr is all right. But it's a situation where the Saints' backup quarterback comes in, and if this game goes overtime, there's a decent chance the Giants are at least looking at a tie. And I bring up a tie because it's one of those games that really, it absolutely could have been. So definitely relieved as to the fact the Giants lost. Pathetic all in the same. They are 0-7 at home, and before the game, there was a plane with a sign that said, a message to John Mara to fix this dumpster fire, I believe was pretty close to the quote. So, you kind of figured you might see something like that eventually, although when it actually happens, it definitely, you notice it for sure. And that's just the state of this team. Bad situation all the way around. Glad they lost, but again, just total ineptitude, major mistakes. Another key focus, and I'm sure I'm not going to get it all right, but tons of injuries that occurred, and some that occurred in game. But I'll try to name all of the ones that happened going into the game. Now, we already know. So this is the Giants. I mean, it's been a while. This is the Giants' first game since Thanksgiving, I guess. Yeah, I guess it is. So Dexter Lawrence ends up being essentially he was placed in IR. And what that means is you're at least 4 games, and that would leave them with 1 game left. But basically, Dexter Lawrence is out for the season. I'm sure I didn't discuss it in the last episode. Theo Johnson ends up getting hurt. I think it was a foot injury. He was placed on IR, so he is essentially out for the season as well. And then where else do we go? I mean, there's continual injuries. The defensive line is really, really beat up specifically. Raheem Nunez-Roches was out in this game. DJ Davidson as well. So it was a ragtag crew as far as the defensive line. Names I had never even heard of. Elijah Garcia, who I believe was promoted from the practice squad. I think he was one of those defensive linemen. Corey Durden as well. Elijah Chapman, who was the undrafted free agent rookie who made the team. Jordan Riley, who was a late round draft pick in 2023. He was in the mix. It was really, again, names that you wouldn't really know about. Bobby Okereke, he's out. So someone who has been kind of all-reliable in terms of being out there, right? He hasn't really been as good this season as last season, but Bobby Okereke was out. So that led to, Micah McFadden obviously played a big role. And then Darius Moasso, who he is now not the only player who has an interception. The interception streak comes to an end because another player that got a lot of playing time who we had not seen much of this season, Trey Hawkins, the 6th round pick from 2023, he gets an interception. But really, the play was kind of just as good as a punt. But the Giants only had one interception, and it was in week one. So that had been 11 straight games. And this, I guess, would have been the 12th straight game if they didn't get one. So that streak comes to an end. So the cornerback position is really, really beat up as well. Deontay Banks out with injury. Drew Phillips out with injury as well. And so it led to a lot of Adoree Jackson and Trey Hawkins for the most part. And Greg Stroman as well getting some action. Maybe even a little bit of Art Green. Again, like these are deep cut names for sure. As far as injuries in game, and I'll try to remember if there had been other ones. I guess I'll discuss the offensive line because no Jermaine Illuminor and no Chris Hubbard. So it ended up being Josh Azudu at left tackle and Evan Neal at right tackle, which is just insane. And I guess, I mean, the Saints only ended up with 2 sacks, which is kind of crazy because it felt like they were in Drew Lock's face like all game, but only 2 sacks to the Saints for what it's worth. So yeah, so that the tackles were really banged up. But then now you had injuries that were sustained by John Runyon and John Michael Schmitz. They both left the game, didn't return. I don't know the severity. I'm not too sure, but like it led it to where like Van Roten was moved to center. Aaron Stinney was the left guard. I forget who came in as the right guard once Schmitz left the game. Oh, Jay Kubis. Yeah, Jay Kubis, I think, was the right guard. Just again, like the offensive line just continues to deteriorate via injury. So that's something to look at. And and then the other in-game injury was Tyler Nubin. So Tyler Nubin being out led to more playing time for Dane Belton. So you did get a sack each from Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, two of the, you look at this defense, those are probably the 2 most recognizable names out there, almost for sure. So they did get a sack each, didn't really do much else. But you know what? Hey, credit to the Giants defense for basically containing what was a really good Saints. Like, they have a very good run game. And Alvin Kamara was totally bottled up. 17 carries, 44 yards for Kamara. And Kendre Miller, 10 carries for 32 yards. A big injury was Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is a big part to the Saint offense, and he is out for the season. He got hurt last week. So that hurt them. But, Drew Lock, and, we're going to get into the specifics of the game. Not, going to try to, kind of skim through it. It does feel a little bit crazy when you consider, like, where the Giants are at to kind of take the deep dive. But for consistency, and it was a close game. So, definitely there are some things to discuss there. But Drew Lock was not very good. He actually started out, I believe it was 0 for 8 in this game. Ends up 21 for 49, 227 yards, no touchdowns and 1 interception. On the ground is honestly where he got most of his action. 5 carries for 59 yards, including a 25-yard scamper that kept the game alive. There was also a bad one, though, earlier in the game where Lock had an easy first down. If he just went straight ahead, decides to cut it right and just not really sure what he was thinking there. And you could tell Brian Dable was not exactly thrilled with that. But yeah, Drew Lock, not very impressive. Tommy DeVito actually did come in for one play. He was the backup. And I guess health-wise, he's all right because Tim Boyle was waived. So they just rolled with the 2 quarterbacks. And look, I think that if I had to guess, we'll probably see Tommy DeVito again. I think it kind of is a week-to-week situation as far as who the starting quarterback is because Drew Lock certainly did not come in there and say, hey, this is my job. Definitely did not do that at all. He got better as the game went on, but it's really not saying much. It was a pretty much flat-out disaster. The stats show that Drew Lock, there's a certain style of play for him, and it's chaotic. It only ended up leading to 1 interception. He really could have been intercepted more. He was lucky that the turnovers were, I believe, just 1. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that you just try to figure it out the rest of the season with Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, but it's really, really poor quarterback play. And now with the offensive line being in shambles, it's tough. Malik Neighbors, he came into the game with an injury, but he made it through as healthy as he could be. Was not really used or targeted much in the first half, and we've seen that before. But Malik Neighbors, 5 catches for 79 yards on 10 targets. I guess staying with the receiving, Daniel Bellinger, he was the de facto number 1 tight end with Theo Johnson out. Daniel Bellinger, 5 catches, 45 yards. So good to see him, a guy who's in his third year, and it doesn't feel like he's really in a great place right now with the way things are looking. Even though like there is use for Daniel Bellinger, he's he can block, like he can do multiple things. But so it was good to see. It's been a while, honestly, him having that 5 for 45 stat line. I guess maybe in games that Darren Waller missed last season, I suppose that maybe Bellinger did that, but it's not even really ringing a bell. Wan'Dale Robinson was targeted a lot, 11 targets, but really ends up only being 4 catches for 38 yards. Tyrone Tracy, not very good in the run game, but was involved in the pass game and, kind of on certain drives where the Saints kind of sat back a bit. There were plays for Tracy to be had, kind of just straight 5, 6, 7 yard type plays. But he ends up with 5 catches for 38 yards there. On the ground, only 16 for 45. He did get a little, I think, 1 or 2 yard rushing touchdown. Devin Singletary was not used much at all. Darius Slayton, kind of in the post Daniel Jones world, is, kind of losing, I think, some reps to Jalen Hyatt. I mean, Hyatt hasn't done anything with it, but Slayton, his numbers were pretty low in this game. And then let me just see if there was anything notable as far as just the team stats. I don't really think that there were, but time of possession, pretty close. I mean, more to the Saints, kind of on a 32-minute to 28-minute basis. Total yards, let's see. In favor of the Giants, 325 to 292. Third down efficiency, Saints 5 for 15, Giants 5 for 19. Giants, a lot of fourth down opportunities, going 2 for 4. So again, a pretty ugly. I mean, the Saints were in control of this game for the most part. And then it kind of got away from at the end of the game. Darren Rizzi, the interim head coach, who was the previous special teams coach and a local guy, a Jersey guy, you could tell he was pretty fired up to get the win. But let's just get into the game. It was ugly, so we'll try to get through this together. But the Saints get the ball first. They would have a 3-and-out on the first drive of the game. And the Giants end up with pretty good field position to start. That was kind of a theme. Giants ended up with good field position, whether that be just, because the Giants defense played well for the most part. They really did. And again, they were decimated. When you think about no Dexter Lawrence, no Bobby Okereke, and even more just depth like Nunez, Roches, DJ Davidson, and the corners. I mean, I forgot about? Completely forgot about him. Cordell Flott, I guess he was active, but he didn't play either, I guess. Yeah, I'm just, if someone wants to correct me, please let me know. But I'm pretty sure that Flott, he wasn't, I'm pretty sure he was active. And I could be wrong on that, but I guess he wasn't good enough to play. Yeah, so we're talking no Banks, Flott, and Drew Phillips. So certain positions were completely ravaged. But again, and I know this is not a good Saint offense. It's not. But still, I think the defense does deserve some props because it could have gotten really, really ugly. Giants offense is just terrible. So anyway, they get the ball at about midfield. And just mistakes. I mean, you have an illegal formation penalty on Josh Azudu that kind of made things tough. But the Giants kind of got out of it because Drew Lock scrambles on a 3rd and 15 for a first down, a 15-yard run for Lock. But then things kind of stall out to the point where the Giants go for it on 4th and 8 at the Saint 36, and it ends up in an intentional grounding on Drew Lock. So you can certainly question that. I don't mind being aggressive at this stage of the season. 4th and 8 at 36. I mean, could you have gotten Gano there? Maybe, but it doesn't work out for the Giants. So the Saints get the ball. They get it, with pretty good field position at midfield. There is an Alvin Kamara first down run. But beyond that, Giants bottled up the run game, and Blake Grupe, the Saint kicker, misses wide left on a 53-yard field goal. So both teams kind of getting good field position, but struggling to do anything with it. Then the Giants go 3-and-out. And even though they could have actually went for it, 4th and 2 at the Saint 49, really would have been very reasonable to do so. They actually punted away. Maybe it was just PTSD from what had happened in the drive before. But then the Saints put together really their best drive of the game. It's a 98-yard drive, 9 plays it took. And there was only 1 third down conversion, but it was right away. It was Valdez Scantling, a 22-yard catch With I think Greg Stroman was on him, and then Jawan Johnson, a 30-yard reception that gets it into Giant territory. Um, kind of Kamara gets involved, but Kendre Miller, who had been activated off of IR, he is the one that gets the 8-yard touchdown where he was just pushed in. And again, it's not a great look for the Giants that, again, the Saints, like all their linemen, and they were able to just kind of push him through probably like for 3 or 4 yards. He really was going to be down, I think maybe, like I said, the 3 or 4, and it ends up being a Saint touchdown to make it 7-0. Giants get the ball back after that touchdown, and they go 3-and-out. We jump to the second quarter, and the Saints go 3-and-out. Giants get the ball back, and they are actually able to put up 3 points. Daniel Bellinger with 11-yard reception. Malik Neighbors with one of his few plays of the first half, a 17-yard catch. I guess I should also mention, again, the Giants start out with pretty good field position due to an unnecessary roughness penalty on Jamal Williams where he hit Smith Marset when he was out of bounds. So you're already starting with the Giants about midfield, and Drew Lock is sacked by Bresee, and Graham Gano hits a 43-yard field goal to cut it to 7-3. Then the Saints try to get a little bit creative on special teams. On a 4th-and-3, they do a direct snap to Jamal Williams, and he ends up being short. Maybe it wasn't the best spot, but it was not reviewed. At least to our knowledge, it wasn't reviewed. It wasn't challenged. And so a 2-yard play, they are unable to get that. So now the Giants, again, with really good field position in Saint territory, but they're unable to do anything with it. And on 4th-and-4 at the 42, Jamie Gillan punts away. Some pretty good punts by Jamie Gillan today. I've been critical of him in the past for not really being great in terms of pinning teams inside the 10, inside the 5. He was doing a pretty good job of that in this one. So the Saints, they have bad field position, and they go 3-and-out. So yet again, Giants in a good situation. And Amir Smith Marset appeared to have a 56-yard touchdown on a punt return, but it was nullified due to an offensive holding penalty on Greg Stroman. So might have been a bit of a ticky-tack call. Want to get a better look at that one, but ultimately the score remains 7-3. So a big missed opportunity. Maybe you can argue that if Stroman doesn't do that, Smith Marset is not able to get that touchdown chance. But so be it. Giants still get the ball, at midfield, which again has been, in kind of looking at this more, I kind of got that sense during the game, but you even kind of see it now more looking at sort of the drive-by-drive scenarios. But they're unable to do anything, punt it away. And the Saints as well, not much going on there either, to the point where they punt it to the Giants. I believe Tyler Nubin gets hurt on this drive. And so the Giants get the ball back. They move it into Saint territory. But things, right around the edge of field goal range, the Giants are unable to do much with that. And so then the Saints, with only like 30 seconds left and maybe 2 timeouts at their disposal, they're actually able, due to a pass interference penalty on Tyler Nubin, it sets it up for a Blake Groupie 60-yard field goal attempt, but it's blocked. All in all, the half ends with the Saints up 7-3. Giants get the ball first in the second half. They would go 3-and-out. Again, Tyrone Tracy struggling on the ground. Giants were not able to create many holes in the run game. And then the Giants get their first interception that they've had in quite some time, since week 1, on this ensuing drive. And the Saints were moving it a bit. There was a pretty big play to Jawan Johnson for 14 yards. But then, there was an illegal formation penalty on the Saints. And then on a 3rd-and-10, Derek Carr kind of takes a deep shot, and it's intercepted by Trey Hawkins. So Giants get the ball to 17. So in some ways, kind of just as good as a punt, but still the second interception on the season for the Giants, which is crazy. And then the Giants don't do anything with it. There was an 8-yard catch by Wan'Dale Robinson, but Jamie Gillan punts it away. And so the Saints get the ball back, and they would score their second touchdown of the game. And it would be a big play to Cedric Wilson, an 18-yard catch to kind of catapult the drive, just as it did earlier with the Valdez-Scantling one on 3rd down, kind of gets them going a bit. And And then there's two big plays to the Saints tight ends. Foster Moreau, a 32-yard catch, and then a very easy, maybe a miscommunication, a wide open Juwan Johnson with an 11-yard touchdown catch from Derek Carr to give the Saints a 14-3 lead, which they would hold for a while. Giants have the ball down by 11. And, you get a Wan'Dale Robinson first down catch, which you had not seen much of. Still, Malik Neighbors really doesn't get used until like the fourth quarter, honestly. We go to the fourth quarter, and there was a holding penalty on John Michael Schmitz that kind of stopped what looked like maybe it could be a promising drive. Ultimately, the Giants settle. Well, we're going to maybe settle for 3 on a 4th and 2 at the 30. And again, you could argue for sure to go for it. They don't. And it ends up costing them because what would have been a 48-yard successful field goal by Graham Gano ends up in an unnecessary roughness penalty by Jay Kubis. He kind of body slams again. I believe it was Bresee. So now it takes him out of even field goal range. The weird thing, though, is that there was a running into the kicker penalty that I guess on the punt by Jamie Gillen, there was a running into the kicker penalty, a 5-yard penalty on the Saints, but I guess Brian Dable felt like it was out of Gano's range. It probably would have been like a 57-yard field goal attempt. And so they just decided to decline the penalty, and the Saints get the ball back, to which you get a Valdez-Scantling 16-yard reception, but not a whole lot else. And so they punt it back to the Giants. So the Giants, they do put together a touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. And Malik Neighbors was a pretty big part of this drive, but Daniel Bellinger too. Daniel Bellinger makes a 12-yard catch. Drew Lock scrambles on a 3rd and 9. This game was very close to just being totally done, but the Giants kept on keeping it alive with certain 3rd down conversions and 4th down conversions. But a 14-yard scramble by Drew Lock. What else? On 4th and 10, see, here's kind of the game with like maybe a little more than 5 minutes left, down by 11. Lock to Wan'Dale Robinson for 18 yards. So that keeps things alive. The next play, 22-yard catch for Malik Neighbors to the 1-yard line, and then they punch it in. Tyrone Tracy Jr. with a 1-yard touchdown run. And then what was pretty big was a weird 2-point conversion success from Lock to Malik Neighbors. It was deflected by the Saint defender. Really should have been picked off even or knocked down, but it ends up in the air, and Neighbors is able to come up with it, and he gets the 2 points. So that kind of changed the complexion and feel of the game. Then the Saints get the ball back looking to end the game with about 4 minutes to go. And on the second play of this drive, Derek Carr gets hurt. He's running, trying to get the first down, and he leaps. Admirable of him, but he comes down hard on that left arm, left hand, and he might have been concussed, and so he leaves the game. And so the Saints' backup quarterback comes in, Haener. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I believe first name Jake. Want to get this right? Yes, Jake Haener, who is not a great backup, like just based on what I know, which isn't much, but if this game goes to overtime, there really is a chance the Giants could have won this game, honestly. But the Saints are stuffed after this play. And I should also mention that on that drive where the Giants got a touchdown, Tommy DeVito did come in for one play. There was a package for DeVito. It ended up being a run play, and then Locke came back in, so the fans started to boo once DeVito came out and Locke was back in the game. But from there was where Carr gets hurt. And then they do a toss play to Kendre Miller where they lose 1 yard. Nice play by Micah McFadden. And so, the Giants have the ball down by 3 with about 3 minutes left. But the Giants, they do get a 20-yard pass play to Darius Slayton, kind of the one big play he had in the game on a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 17. We get beyond the 2-minute warning. There was delayed game penalty on the Giants, which didn't help matters. And an incomplete pass intended for Wan'Dale Robinson. And then on a 4th and 9, Drew Lock is intercepted by Demario Davis, the linebacker. You know what? Davis had the right idea where instinctually he went down, but with the Giants having 3 timeouts left and Davis having space, he probably could have got up and got some more yards. Now, I don't know if he would have gotten a touchdown, but I think, it ends up kind of working out for the Giants that he gave himself up. The game isn't over for the fact that Derek Carr's not in there, and the Giants have 3 timeouts. The Saints end up going 3 and out, and Kayvon Thibodeau ends up sacking Haener. In a play where I understand why the Saints were trying to maybe switch it up, not be so obvious. and Haener just took the sack because a sack was kind of better than an incomplete pass in that situation. So the Giants get the ball back with no timeouts left, down by 3, a minute and 20 or so seconds to go. And the first play is to Tyrone Tracy for 13 yards. Then the really big play, 4th and 10. Game is basically one play away from being over, and Drew Lock scrambles for 25 yards and goes out of bounds. So now you're thinking, okay, Giants might actually be able to win this game in regulation, down by 3. Then the next play is a Malik Neighbors 23-yard reception where honestly there was a moment where I thought he might take it to the house. He doesn't. The Giants spike it. Then there is a false start on Josh Azudu and a couple of incomplete passes, one intended for Wan'Dale Robinson in the end zone and then one that was out of bounds to Darius Slayton, setting up with about 15 or so seconds left what would have been a fairly easy game time field goal for Graham Gano. However, and I don't know if maybe because of the earlier thing with Kubis that maybe this was kind of like the play where the Giants against the Seahawks, one of the 2 Giant wins where the Giants blocked that Seahawk field goal. Kind of like this. It was basically it was a legal play. And Bresee is able to move past, I guess maybe Kubis or whoever was on the line clean. And he's able to get a hand on it just enough to block the kick, and it is no good. The 35-yard field goal is unsuccessful, and the Saints hold on for the 14-11 win. Very good news for the tank. And so now the Giants are 2-11, 0-7 at home. 2 more chances to win at home for the fact that this year for the NFC, there's 9 home games. And so the one next week versus the Ravens, I would be stunned if the Giants won the game. That'd be one of the bigger shocks that I've seen in some time. If the Giants were able to pull off that upset. The one that to me is the most likely in terms of the home slate. I mean, it's kind of process of elimination, but the Colt game, the 7th last week of the season, it kind of depends on where are the Colts in terms of their playoff chances in the AFC. Because I've always looked at that game and felt like I could see the Giants winning that one. I just have these visions. And I hope I'm wrong, because again, I want what I feel is best for this team moving forward. And look, losing sucks, no doubt about it. I understand, look, if Shane and Dable let go, so be it. I do like Brian Dable as a head coach, but not enough. If they feel like, hey, that this needs to be, that they need to clean house, with Joe Shane and company, I am totally fine with that. Again, for me, it's about getting the best draft capital possible. And look, we don't know how good these quarterbacks are going to be, but at least put yourself in the position to have a chance to draft someone that can maybe change the landscape of the franchise. Because again, there was a fan that, basically had a plane that told John Mara, hey, please fix this dumpster fire. That's where we're at right now. It's really, really bad. And more just, fucked up mistakes lead to a loss in this game. And there's many of them. So, it is now a 8-game losing streak for the Giants. You kind of lose track at this point, but I believe it's 8. They were 2-3, and now they're 2-11. So we'll see next week. The Ravens are coming off of a bye. I suspect that this is going to be a very tough game, and the Ravens are coming off of, I believe, a loss as well. Yes, to the Eagles. So you're going to get a really hungry Lamar Jackson led team. So we'll see what happens, but I suspect that it won't be very pretty at MetLife Stadium next week. But again, the Saints are able to block what would have been a game-time field goal late against the Giants. They lose to the Saints by a score of 14-11, dropping to 2-11, an 8-game losing streak, and now they are 0-7 at home.